Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the 31st episode of Brownsville Tech Live. And tonight, it's just me and only me. My co hosts have decided to both play hooky tonight. And so it's just me. So it's a great and exciting new episode tonight. As you all know, we've been doing our back to school specials. We started off last week with our back to school special, reviewing the Mac Air. There's actually two versions. One is based on the M1 and the other is based on the M2. So we decided to come back and try to do a new back to school special, kind of leaving the Apple Kool-Aid behind for a while. We recognize that 90% of the world uses something other than Apple, primarily Windows. And in the last several years, Chromebooks have actually made a dent as well. And they've been viable options for schools, for home, and for play. So today we've got an exciting episode because we're going to review some of the best laptops out there for Windows, for Chrome, as well as for Apple. So if you just bear with me here, I'm going to switch out to our virtual theater. I've taken all the seats out. I've taken the curtains. I've even gotten rid of the popcorn machine just to make room for everybody. And basically to give you an opportunity to look at some of the solutions, some of the options that you have with regards to laptops here as school starts. So give me a second here while we switch over to our virtual theater. So we're in our virtual theater now, and like I said, there's some laptops that have been rated for this year that are great for school, for home, and for play. So whether your kids are elementary school kids or they're high school kids or they're kids that you're sending off to college, we all know that they use computers almost every day, and they need the best tools out there for their education. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I won't take up too much of your time today. Like I said, I'm here by myself, so it should be a pretty good show, even if it's just me. So let's go ahead and get started with our first product review. So up on top, and by the way, these are not reviews that I chose. I've done some research, and primarily these were the top laptops that were actually reviewed by PC Magazine for this past month's edition. So they're not something that you're getting from me. It's got nothing to do with the Apple Kool-Aid. It's basically a pretty thorough review of some of the laptops out there that you can look to purchase for your child. So the very first laptop is the HP Pavilion Aero. It is a new line of model here from HP. And HP is a pretty good company. I've had a couple of HP products. They make excellent printers, as y'all know, but they also make some pretty decent laptops. And this HP Pavilion Aero is based on the AMD Ryzen 7 processor. If you're not familiar with processors, there's actually two companies out there that produce processors for the Windows PCs. That includes Intel as well as AMD. And, every couple of years, there's always this little war back and forth between whether an Intel processor is a better processor or whether AMD is a better processor. And quite honestly, throughout the years, they've kind of taken turns back and forth. There are years that the Intel processors have been top notch, and there's years that the AMD processors have been top notch. In fact, in the last, I'd say a few years prior to COVID, AMD sort of took off, especially with Ryzen. And there's actually three types of processors you need to look out for. There's the Ryzen 3, which is comparable to the i3 on the Intel side. There's the Ryzen 5, which is comparable to the Intel i7 processor. And then there's the Ryzen 9, which is comparable to the i9 on the Intel side. But for this HP laptop, we're looking at an AMD Ryzen 7 processor. It has a 13.3-inch diagonal WUXGA display. And you know, there's different sizes of laptops. There's 11-inch laptops out there. There's 13-inch laptops. There's even 14-inch laptops, 15.6-inch laptops, and laptops that are 17 inches and slightly greater. The sweet spot usually is about 14 inches, and that is what I typically prefer when it comes to a display for a laptop. 11-inch laptops, they're kind of small. The display is kind of small. But the sweet spot is the 14-inch laptop. And then, of course, you've got, you know, the 15.6-inch laptops, which have been the standard laptop for many years. And then you've got what I call the boat anchors, which are the 17-inch laptops. And usually those laptops are primarily for gamers and people that prefer a bigger display, but they don't want to necessarily dish out the money for an external monitor. So this one's about 13.3, which may not be too bad. It does come with 16 gigabytes of RAM, and that's pretty important. I prefer 16 at minimum today. 32 gigabytes would be better. It does come with integrated AMD Radeon graphics. The AMD Radeon graphics is a graphics chipset. There's actually two popular ones out there, but they're based on either AMD Radeon or the NVIDIA chipset. The NVIDIA chipset tends to be a better chipset, but you know, the AMD Radeon can hold its own. There's also another chipset made by Intel as well. So that's just something that we're going to see in a few other models here we'll review tonight. This laptop comes with 512 gigabytes of storage, and it is an SSD drive. And there are differences out there when you purchase a laptop. They can either come with a mechanical drive, which is the old kind of drives that had the external parts that spin and spin and spin, or they're either going to be that or an SSD drive, which is basically flash memory. They're lower power consumption, and they're actually faster at boot up. This laptop comes with one USB-C port. It comes with one display port. It comes with two USB-As, so you'll be able to connect printers and some of those normal peripherals. And it does come with an HDMI port, so you'll be able to connect it to an external monitor as well as a television. Now, the phenomenal thing about this laptop, it's got 15 hours of battery life, and of course, it comes with Windows 11. And the price on that right now is about $749. So this was the top-rated laptop for whatever reason, as PC Magazine did a review on it. So the next laptop was the Dell Inspiron 16. This laptop is a pretty powerful laptop. It's a 12th generation Intel Core i7 processor, and it's got up to 10 cores. As I mentioned, Intel also has its own graphics chipset, and this one comes with the Iris Xe graphics chipset. It is a 16-inch laptop, so it's something between a 15-inch and a 17-inch. I've never seen one of these. I've never touched one of these, so I don't know how comfortable they are, especially at 16 inches. It does come with 16 gigabytes of RAM, and this one comes with a terabyte SSD drive. That's a whole lot of storage, especially if you're storing music and videos and doing some heavy graphics work. You'll want to have a lot of storage. It comes with two USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports, so you can connect printers, cameras, things like that. It also comes with a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C port with power. Now, what that means that in addition to connecting a USB-C type of device, and some of your phones today are USB-C, they also, the USB-C port comes with power, which means that you'll be able to power the laptop through an actual USB cable instead of your traditional micro USB or something more traditional like on the Apple side when it comes to MagSafe and things like that. It also comes with a display port as well. It comes with an audio jack, and it comes with an HDMI port, and it comes with its own power adapter port. So like I mentioned, you can either connect it to the normal brick power adapter, or you can go ahead and power it with a USB-C port as well. This laptop also has 15 hours of battery life, and it comes with Windows 11. This laptop's a little bit more pricier. It's about $999. The fourth laptop is actually a gaming laptop, and for some of you that don't know, there's a couple of gaming laptop manufacturers, and one of those laptop manufacturers is MSI. They also manufacture gaming motherboards as well. They're really high rated. So this one's a 15.6-inch laptop, so that's how big the screen is. It comes with an 11th generation Intel Core i7, and it comes with 16 gigabytes of RAM. If you recall earlier, I mentioned that 16 should be your base, especially if you're doing gaming, especially if you're doing graphics work or video editing or anything that's very intensive. You want to look at that. It comes with 512 gigabytes of SSD storage. It's not as big as the Dell one that holds about a terabyte, but 512 you can get by at least for a year or two. There's also cloud storage that you can take advantage of if you want to, consider going with a 512 gigabyte SSD. You can move some of your files and your graphics and your videos off to external storage or cloud storage as well. Now this one's really neat because it comes with the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3060 graphics chipset. The 3060 is the top of the line graphics card there is. Being a gaming laptop, you wouldn't expect any more, right? Now this one comes with Windows 10, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, Windows 10 is still pretty popular. I know Windows 11 is out. In fact, I have just upgraded to Windows 11 on this machine that we're streaming right now. So Windows 11 is great. It's actually solved some of my problems. But this one comes with Windows 10, and I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to get a free upgrade to Windows 11 after a couple of boot ups. Now this one comes in the one color, which is black, and MSI throws in a 32 gigabyte Snowbell USB cards. That was a typo, by the way, on the slide. Now this one's a little bit more pricier because it is a gaming laptop. It's currently retailing for about $1,200. So the next laptop we're going to look at is the Microsoft Surface Pro 8. And I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of disappointed the way Microsoft has taken the direction of the Surface line. I mean, I remember when Microsoft first released the product many years ago, it was pretty exciting. It was going to be something comparable to the iPad, and for the most part, it is. Unlike the iPad, which is still a tablet, the Surface Pro is an actual computer. It's a PC, and it's versatile, and it's flexible, and it's portable. But it's kind of, in the last few years, lagged behind some of your other laptops. For example, it only comes with an Intel Core i5 processor. That's a mid-level processor. It only comes with 8 gigabytes of RAM. I mean, you could do with 8 gigabytes of RAM, but this is not going to be a gaming laptop. It's not going to be a laptop that you're going to use, for example, for video editing or graphics work. 8 gigabytes is just not going to take you far. And the other disappointing thing is they only offer 128 gigabytes of SSD. That is pretty small. By the time they've loaded the operating system and they've loaded all their bloatware, the likelihood that you're going to have 64 gigabytes left of storage is going to be unlikely. It's going to be something like that. So that's kind of disappointing. It is a 13-inch touchscreen, unlike the others. So you can basically use it as a tablet because it is a touchscreen. It is based on the Intel Iris Xe graphics chipset, and it only comes with one Thunderbolt port. What does that mean? Well, if you want to connect anything that's external, like that uses USB, you're going to have to get an adapter, a multi-adapter that goes from Thunderbolt to USB. And of course, it's Windows 10 based. Now, this laptop retails currently for $850. It's not one of those that I currently recommend. Maybe a few years ago, but it's lagging behind as far as, capabilities, functions, the amount of RAM, very low storage, the lack of ports. I mean, that's a big, big, big problem right now for me. So I'm not sure I would go out there and actually recommend this machine. Now it will connect to the internet and it's going to do the basic things. But if you're a gamer, if you're a graphics designer, if you're a video editor, I think you'd want to look at something else for now. So we'll go on and go over to the next laptop, and once again, it's another Microsoft product. But this time, it's the Microsoft Surface Laptop Go 2. As I mentioned, it's still based on the Intel Core i5 processor. It only comes with 8 gigabytes of RAM. Now, this laptop comes with 256 gigabytes SSD. In my opinion, 256 is not enough. You've got phones out there right now with greater storage than that. So that's a little disappointing. It is Windows 10 based, and it's actually lower. It's about $600. I mean, if you're looking for something to do basic connectivity, basic word processing, things like that, this may be the laptop for you. But like I said, if you're going to do something heavy, especially photography, videography, any kind of gaming, you might as well move on from this laptop at this point. The next laptop is the Lenovo Chromebook, and this is the only Chromebook that we're actually going to review tonight. It is the only Chromebook that PC Magazine felt that it was worth mentioning. Chromebooks, as you know, are low-power laptops. They don't even match a Windows S laptop today. They're basically very popular because they're cheap. And what I mean by cheap is you can get Chromebooks today for like $200, but you're going to get what you're going to get. And these are not meant to replace the Windows laptop by any means. There just isn't a chance in hell that it'll ever replace the Windows laptop. But it is a laptop that PC Magazine felt that it was worth mentioning for those that would like basic internet connectivity. It's basically an upgrade, in my opinion, to a phone. Now, the Lenovo Chromebook Flex 5, which is their Chromebook, is based on the Intel Core i3 processor. It's a 10th generation processor, but it's a very, very low entry processor. It only comes with 4 gigabytes of RAM. And if you want to know what 4 gigabytes of RAM is, go back like 5, 6, 7, or 8 years, where 4 gigs of RAM was actually the standard configuration in most computers. So we're talking many, many, many moons ago. Now, the other disappointing thing about this Chromebook, as all the other Chromebooks, is that it only comes with 64 gigabytes of storage, and it is SSD based. And I want to talk about a little bit about storage on the Chromebook side, is because the whole point of having very low storage is because Chromebooks are based on Chrome OS, which is Google's operating system. And with that in mind, the idea behind these Chromebooks was that all your storage was going to be based on Google Cloud, that everything was going to be stored on the cloud. And remember, a few years ago, this thing about the cloud was like hot and heavy. Everybody wanted to be on the cloud. Everybody wanted to have a cloud-based application. But the reality of it is, if you're doing real work, you can hold your stuff in the cloud for secondary backup purposes. But if you're going to want to use it like a regular hard drive, reads and writes and stuff like that, it's going to be slow. It's not going to be as fast as physical storage on a device. It just isn't. So, if you're comfortable having all your files on the cloud, well, then you're the Chromebooks for you. But unfortunately, all of these Chromebooks come with very, very low storage. It is a 13-inch Chromebook. It's got a 13-inch touch display, which was very surprising. Most Chromebooks do not incorporate touch. But I figured that the reason why touch is now being incorporated, because I think there's a transition at Google between Chrome OS and Android. And they want to diverge those two operating systems together. And touch is part of that. As you know, Google developed both Android and Chrome OS. And they appear to be competing against each other. So I believe that in the future, you're going to see a convergence of both operating systems. And of course, with that in mind, you want to have touch display on any devices out there. Now, surprisingly, this Chromebook comes with a backlit keyboard. So for example, if you're in bed at night and you're doing some work, a backlit keyboard comes in handy. If you're flying in an airplane and the cabin lights are off, backlit keyboards are pretty important. It does come with a webcam. It also comes with support for Wi-Fi. And like I mentioned, it's based on Chrome OS. What does that mean? You're not going to be able to use Microsoft Office. Okay? That is a huge mistake that a lot of people make when they buy these Chromebooks. They've got this idea that you're going to be able to run Microsoft Office, and that's not the case. Typically, what you're going to see is you're going to see Google Sheets, Google Docs, Google Slides. It's going to be the Google Office alternative. And by the way, these screens that I am presenting were actually made with Google Slides, not PowerPoint. So it's not a bad, alternative. But I just want to let everybody know that you're not going to be able to run Windows-based applications on a Chromebook. That's just not going to happen. Now, the price of this Chromebook is about $430, which I think is a little pricey because there are others that are actually cheaper. I think you can get some for $250. The problem that you've got to look out for with these Chromebooks is the amount of RAM, and I haven't seen any Chromebook greater than 4 gigabytes, and the storage. This one has a little larger storage. Typically, I've seen 32 gigabytes. I'm starting to see 64. I have yet to see a 128 gigabyte model. But you never know. They may release one here down the road. The next laptop that came in was the Asus VivoBook 17 Home Business Laptop. Now, this laptop is based on the Intel Core i7. It only is a 4-core processor. Okay. It does come with 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is the minimum, as I mentioned, that you should consider. It comes with a terabyte SSD, so it's got a pretty sizable hard drive. It is, though, a 17.3-inch display, which I typically call a laptop 17 inches or greater a boat anchor. You can take it, wrap a rope around it, and use it as an anchor in a boat because they're heavy and they're huge. So that's something you want to factor in, especially if your child is walking across campus. I mean, you don't want to be lugging a 17-inch laptop that's weighing 10, 12 pounds, walking across campus. By the time you know it, they're gonna develop backaches and all kinds of problems. So I don't really think that the 17-inch laptop is a viable alternative to anything else. They're simply boat anchors, and really, in my opinion, they should be confined to the desk. It's for those people that don't want to have a desktop, but they don't want to have a monitor, but they want the luxury of having a big display. It does come with a 1600 by 900 resolution, which is slightly higher than 1080p. And as I mentioned, this one comes with an Intel HD 610 graphics chipset. I mentioned there was 3 chipsets out there. There is chipsets based on NVIDIA, there's chipsets based on AMD Radeon, and of course the third chipset is the Intel-based graphics chipset. It does come with one USB 3.2 Type A port, so you can connect your printers, your cameras, all those external devices that still use the traditional Type A port. It comes with an HDMI port, and it also comes with an SD card. It does support Wi-Fi, and it also supports Bluetooth connectivity. So if you've got AirPods or Bose speakers or Beats or things like that, you're going to be able to connect those headphones or those earpods straight to the laptop. Additionally, via your phone, you'll be able to connect via Bluetooth and transfer pictures and files and things like that straight over Bluetooth. There's no need to connect a cable to the laptop to transfer. Now, I will say that regardless, nothing beats a wire. It's faster, but not everybody has a wire, so Bluetooth is one way that you can do that. Okay, it does come with a webcam. Now, because it only comes with one USB port, they're actually including an extra USB hub. A hub is basically a little device that has multiple USB inputs with one USB cable to that single port on that laptop. So you can connect your phone, you can connect your printer, you can connect your camera using that USB hub. And that's pretty popular. I mean, that's nothing to shy away from. Apple's been doing it for years. They've been switching out port designs, like changing out underwear, and they've had to come up with different kind of adapters and hubs to support some of the external devices out there. So it's not something to shy away from. It's just something extra that you're going to have to plug in case you need to plug in those devices. Once again, this laptop is a Windows 10 laptop, which of course, as I mentioned, for those of you interested in Windows 11, I guarantee you that after a few boot ups, you're going to get prompted to upgrade. And if you do, go for it. It's worth the upgrade. This laptop retails for about $870 currently. The next laptop that came in was another one by MSI. And as I previously mentioned, MSI is a manufacturer of gaming laptops, and it's a manufacturer of gaming motherboards. It's a pretty decent manufacturer. Unfortunately, this one was a little disappointing, being a laptop from MSI. It only comes with an Intel Core i3, and that is the bare minimum in processors. So you're not going to get a whole lot. Why this one made it to PC Magazine's review, I have no idea, but it's pretty low power. It only comes with 4 gigs of RAM, and as I mentioned a while back, 4 gigs was pretty popular 5 to 7 years ago. That was like top notch back in those days. It only comes with 128 gigabytes SSD, and it's the only thing about it that's positive is it is a 14-inch laptop. As I mentioned, 14 inches is that sweet spot. It's not too small like a 13, but it's not too big like a 15, and it definitely isn't a boat anchor. So 14 is about right for most cases. And one of the nice things that's touted about this laptop, unlike some of the others, I think, with the exception of Dell, is it comes with a thin bezel. If if there's anything that irritates me about a laptop today, is the real estate that is taken by that black bezel around the screen. It's the same thing with computer monitors. The monitors that I have here that I use are very thin bezel because I believe that most monitors should be edge to edge, top to bottom. There should be very little black. Same thing with TVs. I can't stand TVs with a whole lot of bezel. Even though I have a few that do have that. But if I had it my way, we would have no bezels because I don't think they're necessary today. It should be edge to edge, just like being at the movie theater. It does come with Windows 10, and it retails for about 500 bucks. It's a cheap laptop. It'll connect you to the internet. You'll be able to do basic word processing. But forget it if you want to do any kind of graphics work, any kind of video editing. It just doesn't have the capacity. It doesn't have the processing power. It doesn't have the RAM. And it just doesn't have the storage. You're going to be running out of storage very quick. In fact, you're not going to get, as I've mentioned, you're not going to get 128 gigs. You'll be lucky to have 60 by the time all the operating system, the bloatware has been added on. You're just not going to see that. So the next laptop that we're going to look at is once again one made by Lenovo. And this one, I have had some experience. I've actually recommended this laptop to a few individuals, and it's been a pretty neat laptop. It's a 14-inch laptop. It's that sweet spot again. It's not as small as a 13-incher. It's not as big as a 15-incher. It's not a boat anchor. It's basically 14 inches, which I believe is that sweet spot. It is a 2-in-1 laptop, and what that means is that you can use it as a laptop and you can use it as a tablet. And the way you convert it to a tablet, it's got a 360-degree hinge. So you'll fold the screen to the other side, and then you'll be able to use it as a tablet because it's got touchscreen capabilities. It does come with an i5 11th generation processor. It comes with 8 gigabytes of RAM, and that's the only thing that's a little disappointing today, is that, in my opinion, is kind of low compared to 16 today. But back then, when I was recommending that laptop, 8 gigabytes was that low entry point. Now, the good thing, it comes with 512 gigabytes of SSD storage. And, like I mentioned, it's 14 inches. It's a full high-definition display, which means that it supports 1080p at 920 by 1080. It does come with a fingerprint reader, so if you guys don't like to type in passwords to log in to the laptop, you can actually store your fingerprint, and that will be your entry into the laptop instead of keying in a password or having to go to your phone to use a two-factor code. You basically use your fingerprint. There's not a single individual on the planet that has the same fingerprint, not even your twin. So fingerprint readers do work. Once again, as I mentioned, it is a touch screen because it is a 2-in-1 laptop. You'll be able to use it as a tablet by flipping the 360-degree hinge brackets. Now, one of the things that it also has, it has a track point. And for those of you that are not familiar with the track point first came about in the IBM ThinkPad. And for those of you that don't know, the IBM PC company was sold off by IBM to Lenovo. And they also have the ThinkPad line. And the little trackpad was that little red or brown little thing that stood up or stood out, and you could use it as a mouse instead of the touch screen. They still come with those. Some people like those. Some people like moving that little thing around. But now everybody uses the actual touchpad instead. It does come with Windows 10, and this laptop, being a 14-incher and a 2-in-1, retails for about $600. As I mentioned, this laptop is one that I've recommended in the past, and it appears to be a viable alternative. I wish it had more RAM. 8 gigabytes just doesn't do it. I mean, if we could have one with 1 terabyte, that'd be even better. But it's a great laptop. It's one that I recommend, and it's an in-between, a laptop and a tablet. The last laptop we're going to review is one that we've already reviewed, and we reviewed it last week, but it came in because PC Magazine felt that it was in the top 10, and I tend to agree. There's no doubt that the Apple MacBook Air, or the Mac Air, is in the top 10. It is a 13-inch laptop, though, so it's slightly smaller than 14, not as big as a 15-inch. And of course, as most of you know, Apple doesn't manufacture boat anchors. So right now there is no 17-inch Mac at all. There is a 16-inch. I think it's the MacBook Pro. But this one's a 13-incher. And it is based on the M1 processor, which contains 8 cores. And if you guys are not familiar with the M1 processor, Apple a couple of years ago decided they wanted to get away from the Intel-based processors. They had actually moved the Mac line previously from the Motorola-based 68,000 series and then the PowerPC series of processors over to Intel. And they did that for about 10 to 12 years. But it became pretty apparent that Intel's bread and butter has always been the Windows side. So a lot of the processors on the Mac side prior to the M1 actually lagged behind to their comparable Intel processors on the Windows side. I mean, Intel was never going to allow Apple to have the latest and greatest processors on the Mac side. It just didn't make any sense. I mean, that was like, cutting their blood supply. So after a few years, after 12 years or so, Apple decided to actually license what they call the ARM processor from ARM Computing. And ARM's been around since the 1980s. They actually developed the ARM processor, which is a RISC-based processor. RISC stands for Reduced Instruction Set Computing. There's actually 2 types of processors out there. There's CISC processors, which are common instruction set computing processors, and there's RISC processors, which are reduced instruction set computing processors. Now, if you hear all the Apple Kool-Aid, they make you think that this is just the greatest technology, that it's brand new. But as I mentioned, it's been around since the 1980s. It was just really never adopted by any PC manufacturer until Apple came along. But the benefits of the M1 processor versus your Intel processor is that they're efficient, they're low power, and basically they're faster. And they're faster than your CISC-based processors, which is what the Windows side currently uses. It does come only with 8 gigabytes of RAM, and as if you all tuned into our review last week, that was one of the things that I mentioned to Doug, is I just don't understand why Apple has decided to stick with 8 gigabytes of RAM. And Doug mentioned that his thought was that they needed to keep a laptop under $1,000. And the only way to do that is to keep it at 8 gigs of RAM. Because even though RAM is cheap, adding 8 gigabyte increments can actually increase the price. The price. And I could see how 16 would take it over the $1,000 threshold that they wanted to avoid. The other thing that I kind of am surprised about this is that it only comes with 256 gigabytes of SSD storage. As I mentioned, 512 is what I consider today the minimum. And if you can get one with a terabyte, that that would be even better. The thing is that you got to understand, Apple, like Google, their plan was basically for y'all to use iCloud storage in lieu of having a large hard drive on the laptop. And this is the same thing. They expect you to store all your stuff in the cloud. And that is why these machines come with such low storage. It does come with a 13-inch Retina display. It isn't the liquid Retina display that is currently available in the M2 based Mac Air, but it is a pretty decent display. It does come with a FaceTime camera. I will tell you that it is a camera that is 720p resolution. It is not a 1080p camera. That really doesn't matter because Facebook and a lot of these social media services, they really only can handle 720p currently. It doesn't make any sense to be FaceTiming at 1080p, and it definitely doesn't make any sense to be FaceTiming at 2K or 4K or 8K. There's no Zoom conference out there that requires those high resolutions. As I mentioned, it also comes with a backlit keyboard, which is pretty important, especially if you're working at night. Sometimes you want to work, where it's a little dim. Sometimes you want to work from bed. You may be on an airplane where the cabin lights are off. So having a backlit keyboard is a plus, and this laptop definitely comes with backlit. Now, what's really impressive about the Mac Air laptop and any Mac laptop is its battery life. It has the longest battery life of all laptops on the planet today. It's 20 hours. As you notice, some of the Windows laptops, the max you got was about 15 hours. So this one has the longest battery life, and that is attributed to the M1 processor. Because they are low power, high efficiency processors. They don't suck up energy like your CISC based processors that are currently offered by Intel. Pretty impressive battery life, excuse me. It's important. I mean, when you're on an airplane crisscrossing the country, as most of you know, at minimum it's 3 hours across the country, maybe 4.5, depending which low budget airline you fly in. If the duct tape comes off the wing, you may have to wait a little longer. So you need a machine that's gonna handle that length of time. And 20 hours is a long, long time. Now, the nice thing about this laptop is it actually is under the $1,000 threshold. It currently retails for $899. And basically, this is the lineup, folks. These are the laptops that made it into the top 10. These are the laptops that were recommended for students as they head back to school. And we wanted to give you all an opportunity to get a real good review of the laptops that PC Magazine identified as being in the top 10 and that would be great for students. Honestly, don't get your child a Chromebook. I think you'd be wasting your money. Spend the extra $300, $400. If you can afford a more expensive laptop, do it. I mean, it's for 4 years. Your child deserves it. So I would go ahead and spend the extra money because they're going to need the processing power. They're going to need it. So this was our episode tonight. Like I said, I did it by myself. Typically I have a co-host or two, but they decided to play hooky, and a lot of times I like to be on my own, and so I felt that this was the perfect episode tonight to actually go solo and to give you guys a real good review of the top laptops for this coming school year for 2022. So go out there to your big box electronics store, take a look at them, go to some of these manufacturers' websites, and even Amazon. Take a look out there what's available. But like I said, a couple of things: 16 gigabytes is the minimum you should look for. I believe that 512 gigabytes is the minimum storage. And look at battery life. Battery life is important. Anything without those three basic requirements, I would move on to look for something else. So, once again, I appreciate everybody's time joining us tonight. It was a pleasure doing this podcast. I will mention that tomorrow we're going to have another podcast, which is unusual, back to back. Our podcast could be exciting. We're going to have the South Texas Astronomy Association with us tomorrow night. And we're going to be looking at some of the latest James Webb telescope images that have been released. We're gonna go through those images. We're gonna have an expert in the house that is an astronomy expert, and he is going to tell us all about those images and what they mean to the future of space exploration and scientific discovery. So I really hope that you guys tune in tomorrow night. It's going to be an exciting episode. We're going to have some pretty cool pictures from thousands of miles away from Earth, and we're going to have the experts to tell you all about them. So I hope that you come back tomorrow and join us for that exciting episode. I wish everybody a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow tonight, same time on Facebook Live and YouTube. Thank you for watching.